Hi, I'm Heather Wright Carlson. I'm an experienced design researcher, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you today about UX research and going through a few practical examples. So today we're going to talk about UX and sensory. Sensory is integral to the experience that users are having, and UX research is going to help you gather data about the sensory experience in order to inform design, improve the adoption and usage of products, and uncover what users are actually doing. UX research allows you to gather data to know how something's actually being used and how well it's going. What you find out might surprise you. Remember, you're not the user. So let's take a look here. What are users actually doing? We wouldn't know unless we actually talk to them or observe them or gather data from them. In these three examples, with a pump soap, we've got, first of all, we have instructions on a website to actually how to open the pump because users are being confused about that. We've got a homegrown solution when lotion doesn't, all of it doesn't make its way out of the container. Someone actually just cut it open. And then we've got a solution classroom teachers often use to put elastic so that not as much soap dispenses in one pump. So sometimes what people are actually doing isn't what you planned for in the design and really isn't what you expected. So when you think about UX research and sensory, there really is such a range of the types of things that we can look at. Everything from digital interfaces to physical products, durables, and medical devices are all things that we look at with UX research. Today, I'm going to talk to you about three areas of UX research. Now, these are not all inclusive, but I just picked three examples that I think are good ones to illustrate the kind of research that you can look at. So we're going to look at product research first. And when we think about product research, we can look at all different areas. We can look at the function of something, how it is actually being used, looking at the interaction and the intuitiveness of the interface. We can also talk to users about their expectations, observe how easy or not it is to use, find out from users how they're troubleshooting. What are they doing to try and fix these problems? We can also look at the maintenance process, and we can observe and collect data about how easy it is to complete certain tasks. We can also compare products between competitors and see how they perform and learn something from another product and how well it's doing or not. For UX research, we also look at websites and apps, things like the information architecture. We could compare the desktop version to the mobile version. We're looking for how easy it is to use, if the information that users find is relevant, and also learning a bit more about what users' expectations are about a website and app and the kind of information they're interested in finding there. We also look at end-to-end experience. So when I say end-to-end, I mean everything from the very beginning, from the first time a user touches the product, like unboxing it, opening it for the first time, all the way to when they're actually interacting and using it. We look at startup and user guides, and we're really gathering data in order to create more consistency among all the points of contact that a user has with the product. So we could look at everything from packaging to the user guides, the customer service, all looking at what points is it consistent and in what points does it diverge, and trying to create an experience that's holistic for users. All right, so we've gone through three areas, and now I'd like to walk you through some example questions that can be explored with UX research. Sometimes folks come and they're wondering, well, what kinds of questions can I answer? Or what kinds of questions should I be having about that could be used, that UX research could be applied to? So I'm going to go through the areas that we talked about, and So when you're thinking about using a product, the kinds of questions that we have are there pain points in the process? And if so, what are they? Does the messaging make sense to users? Are there any points of confusion? And how do users actually use specific products? When we think about a website, we're looking at, can users navigate to find what they're looking for? If they're looking for specific information and they find it, does it actually make sense? Thinking about an app would be similar to a website, but is the information useful? Can they find what they're looking for, and does it make sense? Are there instructions included in the app? And if so, can users follow those? When we think about the end-to-end experience and the kinds of questions we can explore with UX research, they include things like, what did users do when they're setting up or using a product for their first time? And we would observe this. Do the startup guides provide the information that's needed? What questions are users left with? And what context is the product actually being used in? And what are they saying about the experience overall? All right, I'm going to walk you through 2 product UX research examples. The first is a product differentiation example, and the second is product maintenance. So when we think about product differentiation, we're thinking about what are users noticing. In the context of UX research, it's what they're noticing. So design choices obviously have consequences, and those can be uncovered through UX research. Sometimes folks don't know what they're looking at or can't find what they're looking for. So here are some examples of some products that are made by the same organizations, and they're slightly different offerings. And in some cases, one contains alcohol and one doesn't, but the packaging looks very similar. The same thing for diet and regular, as well as non-dairy and regular yogurt. You look at all of these products, it's easy to see how in the context of a supermarket with lots of other choices, or a store and lots of other choices around, how users could go home with the product that they didn't intend to. There are some instances where this type of thing is more high stakes, like putting gasoline in a diesel engine or vice versa, or caffeine and decaffeinated products. These 3 examples are examples of products which are differentiated well. It's very clear that there's something different and reduces the likelihood that a user is going to use or pick up the thing that they don't intend to pick up. All right, so I'm going to go through a quick example of looking at product differentiation. And this is an example study design. So in this example, we were trying to figure out how could the product be most clearly marked as non-alcoholic. And there were several examples of designs and design options. So we wanted to gather feedback from users about which was most clearly marked as non-alcoholic. So in this study design, participants were given 10 seconds, and they looked at 2 pairs of products. And then they shared their thoughts and ideas about what the product was. Then they reviewed an alternate to the 2 versions and shared their thoughts and compared. And they were asked to choose which version was most clearly non-alcoholic. And then they were shown all the versions and asked to choose which was clearly most non-alcoholic and shared why. These were in one-on-one sessions, and the result of this was to get more information about the legibility of text, the wording, the language that was on the bottle, and to find out what folks were making sense of in terms of what they saw on the packaging. So when we look at UX research of things like packaging, we can understand how users are making sense of the product, and also it gives us information about how to make improvements. And now, again, the consequences are going to differ depending on the context. So, maybe picking up the diet soda rather than the regular isn't as big of a consequence as coming home with the alcoholic version instead of the non-alcoholic version. But this failure to notice is always impacting the experience that users have. Okay, the next example I'm going to go through is one about product maintenance. So for this, we were testing the maintenance process. Users were observed, interacting with a product and following the instructions that were displayed on the user interface. These are, again, one-on-one sessions. We had about 12 participants in total for these small sample qualitative studies, and we gathered feedback on the steps of the maintenance process. So here we are. You see the sort of 5 screens that were displayed throughout the process, and the time to complete the process was displayed at several intervals. Technical limitations of the machine and this dot matrix display, we couldn't display the exact time that was remaining in the process. So they sort of went through this process, the screen displayed, and what we found out was the 20-minute estimate only accounted for the first part of a 2-part process, which led to some confusion by the users. They were unclear about how many steps there were in the process, as well as where they were in that process. And they were not clear what to do next, and unsure if the machine was safe to use when it said complete. And even though the expectation at the beginning of the process was set for about 20 minutes, it took more than 25 minutes to complete. So in some cases, users thought the machine was broken. So what was our challenge here with the UX research? It was to use this dot matrix display to aid users through the process. And we needed to include a system status, steps in the process, and also allow users to know where they stood in the process at any given time without an exact timing, since that technically wasn't feasible. So here was our proposed solution. We're going to let users see the number of steps and make it clear where people are in the process. I'm going to walk you through this. So at the far left, you see we're going to set the expectations for the length of the process. It was closer to 30 minutes. We were going to remove the exact times since those were only estimates and they were just causing confusion for folks. We are going to replace those time estimates with unique names for the phases to aid in users' understanding of what was going on with the machine during the maintenance process. We had pre-wash, washing, and rinsing. And then at the end, we're going to have a confirmation that it's complete and that the machine is ready to use. So in order to solve this maintenance challenge, we had to work together. And I think that's true for always solving with UX research. You're working together to balance technical constraints with the usability. And you want to use those best practices and gathering feedback from users. And also balance that with what you know about the limitations of the system you're working with. And one thing is to think about what users need rather than just focusing on a product's capabilities and limitations. I think that this is a good example of how we could use some technical limitations, work within those, and still come up with a great solution for users. Thanks for listening to me today, and I hope you learned a few things about practical examples of how you can conduct UX research, and hopefully it encourages you to learn more about the process and how you can apply some of this for your organization. Thanks.